welcome back to Cardboard Swords, and we've got a fab for less budget deck tech. We've got £25 to brew a semi-competitive Blitz deck. It's Kassai, and it's our Cash and Blades build. Let's get in. Well, since the Centauri Sellsword hit Living Legend status late last year, there's been a Kassai-shaped hole in the meta, but it's just been filled in heavy hitters with Kassai. This new iteration of Kassai is a 20 life 4 intellect hero. She has a passive effect that says if you've drawn a card this turn, your sword attacks cost 1 less to activate. She also has a once per turn action enabling you to banish 2 red and 2 yellow cards from your graveyard to create a gold token. Her signature weapons, the Centauri Sabres, briefly spent some time in Living Legend status, but then when Kassai came back, so did the Sabres. They're one-handed weapons, so you can wield 2 of these, and each one allows you to pay 1 to attack for 2. And if your opponent blocks with 1 or more attack actions, it buffs the sword by 1. The plan for this deck then will be to run a healthy number of red and yellow cards, enabling us to use Kassai's ability to generate gold. We're then going to get as much value as we can from that gold by pitching a blue to it, floating a resource, and drawing a card, meaning that our Sabres then cost 1 less to activate for that turn. We've also got other ways to generate gold and draw cards, meaning you can take down your opponent in a flurry of cash and blades. Alright, let's get straight into the loadout, and for the legs we're running Refraction Bolters. This little beauty from Welcome to Wraith blocks for 1 and allows you to give go again on your sword attack if it hits. Gallantry Gold is an arm piece from Monarch. It blocks for 1 and you can pay 1 resource to give your weapon attacks +1 for the turn. Blossom of Spring does a good impression of Fiondel's Spring Tunic, and arguably in Blitz it's better because you can activate it within the first 3 turns of the game. And Hood of Red Sand is a new Kassai specialisation. It blocks for 1 and as an attack reaction you can pay 1 and banish a red and yellow card from your graveyard. If you do, target sword attack gains when this hits draw a card. The threat of this activation is as impactful as the activation itself, so try and keep this around. We're also packing some Null Rune for those wizards and pesky Rune Blades. This deck very much revolves around swinging those sabres, so we need to give our blades go again so that we can keep swinging. We've got Blade Runner in red, yellow and blue flavour. It gives our swords go again as an attack reaction and buffs our next sword attack as well. We're also running all the flavours of Hit and Run. It's a versatile non-attack action that's able to give our weapon go again, and if it's the second time we're swinging with a weapon, it can also give it a buff. Goblet of Blood Run Wine is a new card from Heavy Hitters. It pitches for 3, which is important, we need plenty of blue pitch. But it can also create as an agility and a vigour token. The agility token will give our first attack next turn go again, and the vigour token will give us a resource, helping us to set up for some explosive big turns further down the line. Run Through is a yellow pitch attack reaction. You can pay 1 into it and it gives our sword a small buff and go again. Precision Press is primarily a blue pitch card that also blocks for 3, but it's also able to give us go again in a pinch if we need it. We've also got 2 copies of the majestic Glint the Quicksilver. This was an all-star card from Welcome to Wraith and it just does everything that Kassai wants to do. It gives our weapons go again, and if we can trigger the reprise we'll also draw a card. Speaking of drawing cards, as well as Glint the Quicksilver we've got other ways to draw cards. Draw Swords is a non-attack action that blocks for 3 and pitches for 3. It also costs 3 resources, but for those 3 resources you get a small buff on your next weapon attack and you draw a card, meaning that your sabres are now free. We're also running a couple of copies of Yellow Sift. We need a reasonable density of yellow so that we can use Kassai's ability. This also blocks 3 and draws us a card which turns on our sabres. As well as these we've got our trusty flow of gold tokens from Kassai's ability. And we're also running a couple of copies of Money Where Your Mouth Is in order to bolster that gold production and also provide a buff to our swords and a relevant on-hit for our opponents to defend against. So we're making cash, we're drawing cards and we're swinging swords, but we've still got to make sure we push damage. Outland Skirmish gives our weapon attack a nice buff. The copper's not particularly relevant, but it's nice in a pinch. Slice and Dice offers a lot of value, buffing both of our weapon attacks, which means we're running red and yellow versions of this. We also want to be playing in the reaction step to keep our opponents guessing, so we've got Iron Song Response which can give a buff of 3. And In the Swing is another 0 cost attack reaction that can buff our second sword attack by 3. And after we've pushed damage we need to deliver that final blow. One card that can help us with this is something like Overpower. It's a blue card that we can pitch early, and when we see it again in the late game and our opponents are having to block, we can buff our sword attack by 4, helping us get over the line. A single copy of Rout is one of our best game enders. It buffs our sword attack power by 3 and returns a defending card to our opponent's hand. so unless our opponent is specifically playing around us having this card, that's probably lights out. For heroes that like to swing their weapons around, we might bring in Steelblade Shunt. Like Overpower, this is a blue, so we can pitch it early and get it back in the late game. It's a defense reaction capable of dealing 1 damage to our opponent on their own turn. If our opponent decides to go to 1, with all the card draw we've got in this deck, Steelblade Shunt can become a win con very quickly. Time to have a look at our budget and see whether we came in on target. We've got a full 40 card deck plus equipment and a small sideboard with some defensive options. The deck contains 20 sources of Go Again, meaning we can keep swinging those swords. The list contains lots of warrior staples, including the 2 copies of Glint the Quicksilver. Using the card market shopping wizard, we came in at €28.32. At the current exchange rate, we came in on budget at £24.18. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you did, please like and subscribe. I'll be taking this Cash and Blades deck to an Armory soon, so there'll be gameplay on the channel. For now, the link is in the description, and we'll see you next time.